Hello everyone. Today I will present to you a 2009 film titled Symbol, which combines comedy, fantasy, and mystery elements. So, bring your coffee or your favorite drink. In this movie, a Japanese man wakes up in a white, doorless room wearing colorful pajamas. As he explores the room, he discovers a protrusion on one wall in the shape of a male member. Curiosity leads him to touch it, resulting in the sudden appearance of giggling baby angels. However, this momentary delight is followed by confusion as the baby angels vanish, leaving behind their own members protruding from the walls and floor. This strange phenomenon is referred to as the learning phase. The man, frightened and desperate for help, tries pressing various buttons in the room to observe their effects. Each button causes a different random object to appear, ranging from small items like toothbrushes to larger ones like vases. By pressing the same button again, he can retrieve the same object. The man's amusement is short-lived when one button summons a cart that hits his legs, and another transforms into a butt that passes gas on his face. As time passes, the room becomes filled with a wide array of random objects. The man discovers that throwing a ball at the wall results in a button granting him sushi, satisfying his hunger. However, he realizes he lacks soy sauce and futilely requests it from his unseen captors. Growing frustrated, he repeatedly presses a button until he finally obtains soy sauce. His excitement turns to anger as the bottle arrives after he finishes eating the sushi. Continuing his exploration, the man discovers a pair of old-school 3D glasses among the objects. When he puts them on, he sees a baby angel pointing at his member, leading him to believe he has found a clue. Unfortunately, pressing that specific button triggers a countdown followed by a giant butt appearing above him to pass gas. Undeterred, he immerses himself in reading 5 volumes of an entertaining manga. However, his attempt to retrieve the 6th volume from a button results in getting the 7th instead. Frustrated, he tries multiple buttons, obtaining volumes 8 and 9 but not the elusive 6th. In his search for an exit, the man discovers a hidden door behind a section of the wall. Excited by this revelation, he loses track of which button opens the door in his haste. He tries various buttons, leading to encounters with an African tribesman running from wall to wall and water falling on his head. Finally, he discovers the correct button, which opens the door. However, his attempts to reach the door fail as it repeatedly closes on his face. Realizing that the door remains open as long as the member button is pressed down, the man experiments with different methods to achieve this. He tries pressing it with his foot in a runner's position, hitting it with a fly swatter from a distance, pulling it with a jumping rope, and using the air from a fan. None of these methods prove successful. He devises a plan to push the button while riding on the cart, but he cannot control the cart's movement. Determined to find a solution, he attempts to keep the button pressed by placing a large vase on top of it. However, the button resurfaces, leading him to conclude that he must fill the vase to make it heavier. The man's attempts to fill the vase with water fail, with the water only falling on him. He then fills it with sushi, but the resulting weight prevents him from picking up the vase. The narrow neck of the vase hinders his hand from retrieving the sushi, forcing him to use chopsticks to remove the pieces one by one. After reducing the sushi's volume, he manages to lift the vase and carries it closer to the buttons. However, upon reaching the room, the man struggles to remember which button opened the door. In his attempt to try one, the African tribesman unexpectedly appears and accidentally collides with the vase, causing it to crack and break in half. Frustrated and overwhelmed, the man loses control, yelling incessantly until he eventually locates the correct button, covering it with sushi. However, this strategy proves futile as the member button reappears amidst the rice. Undeterred, he tries using tape and even a steel plate to cover the button, but all his efforts are in vain. To cope with the pain inflicted by the door hitting his back and to alleviate his frustration, the man takes painkillers and takes a nap. Upon waking, he desires to brush his teeth and presses a button, but instead of water, a rope descends from the ceiling. Surprisingly, this unexpected occurrence improves his mood, sparking a new plan in his mind. He opens the door, utilizes the rope to swing across the room, and attempts to reach the door before it closes. However, his excitement is short-lived as he discovers the door behind the fake wall is locked. Returning to the room before the door closes, he kicks the wall in frustration, accidentally activating a button that reveals a floating key. As he observes the key floating in the room, the man realizes that he needs to find a way to keep both the key and the door open. However, he gets distracted and loses track of the button. Using his observation skills to approximate where his foot would have landed when he kicked the wall, he selects a button but is met with the appearance of a dog barking at him. The same outcome occurs with the next button, but fortunately, his third attempt is successful. With the button in sight, the man walks backward while maintaining his gaze and extends a piece of sushi fish to mark the correct button. When he presses the button, the dog emerges once again. However, this time, he quickly finds the correct button and proceeds with his plan. By summoning the rope, he swings across the room, attempting to reach different buttons. Despite his efforts, he falls to the floor. In a stroke of inspiration, he notices a plunger obtained from one of the buttons and realizes it can help him solve his problem. After a failed attempt, the man successfully combines swinging on the rope with pushing himself using the plunger. This allows him to press the button for the key, grab the key itself, press the door button, and make it to the door before it closes. Eagerly, he inserts the key into the lock and swiftly turns it, hoping to open the door. However, he discovers an additional lock on the top that requires a 3-digit combination. Disheartened, the man hurriedly exits the room, enduring another hit from the closing door. Frustrated, he throws the plunger at the opposite wall, activating a button that releases the African tribesman. As the man watches the tribesman pass by, he notices 3 numbers painted on his forehead, which he deduces to be the combination he needs. With limited time behind the door, the man repeats the process of swinging on the rope and jumping 3 times, once for each number. On the 3rd attempt, he remains behind the door and successfully opens it, although he struggles to push it fully due to the limited space, leaving him trapped. Overwhelmed with despair, he sits on the floor and begins to cry, reminiscing about the joy he experienced with the objects obtained from the buttons. He realizes that he had taken his previous situation for granted, as he had more room to move and entertainment at his disposal. Suddenly, he feels a breeze on his face emanating from the left wall. Upon touching it, he discovers a crack indicating a hidden opening. Seizing the opportunity, he swiftly pushes the panel open and escapes, soon finding himself in a mysterious hallway suspended in a pitch-black void. He runs tirelessly towards an exit, feeling as though an eternity has passed. Finally, he enters a room, noticing that his hair has grown longer, and the colors of his pajamas have faded. This empty room swiftly seals shut after his entry. However, unlike the previous room, adult angels populate this space, leaving only their members exposed to be used as buttons. This phase is referred to as practice. Meanwhile, in a Mexican city, Antonio's family worries about his father, a wrestler known as Escargot Man, who appears more silent than usual. Antonio's mother speculates that his behavior may be due to his upcoming match against a much younger opponent. However, Antonio's grandfather argues that experience outweighs youth. Sister Karen, Antonio's sister, drives Escargot Man to the wrestling ring in her truck, ensuring he arrives early to prepare, including changing clothes and praying to the Virgin Mary. At school, Antonio faces bullying from his classmates, who mock him for betting on Escargot Man and insultingly label him a weak loser. As the match's start time approaches, Sister Karen picks up Antonio and their grandfather in her van to witness Escargot Man's performance. Karen, however, does not stay for the entire match. Antonio and his grandfather secure the last available seats just before the show begins. The Northern Tough Ones, comprising Super Demon and Tequila Joe, enter the wrestling ring as the first team. Subsequently, Escargot Man and his partner Silver Eagle, under the team name Kiss Me a Lot, make their entrance. Silver Eagle initiates the fight for their team, displaying an impressive start. However, he soon becomes overwhelmed when the Northern Tough Ones join forces against him instead of engaging in one-on-one combat. The opponents gesture towards Escargot Man, urging him to join the fight, but he refuses until Silver Eagle employs a trick, causing Super Demon and Tequila Joe to inadvertently strike each other. Seizing the opportunity, Escargot Man escapes. However, he quickly finds himself at a disadvantage and on the verge of defeat. Just as his opponent prepares to strike him with a chair, the man in the mysterious room presses a member button, magically elongating Escargot Man's neck and enabling him to knock out both opponents with a powerful headbutt. Back in the mysterious room, pressing the member button repeatedly yields no further results, perplexing the man. Undeterred, he starts experimenting with different buttons. One button triggers a metal band singer to breathe fire during a Los Angeles concert, another sabotages a Russian magician's attempt to make his assistant disappear, and a third button prompts a Chinese man to bark at his own dogs. On the verge of giving up, the man notices light emanating from above, revealing an absence of ceiling. In contrast to the previous room, he can see angels soaring in the distance. Determined to approach the situation differently, the man decides to utilize the member buttons to climb the walls instead of pressing them. Surprisingly, this method proves effective, causing remarkable events to occur on Earth with every button pressed, ranging from blooming flowers to the demise of an elephant. The higher he ascends, the more complex and varied the effects become, encompassing not only nature but also humanity and significant milestones such as a toaster and the moon landing. As he reaches the pinnacle, the man's hair and beard have grown long, and he no longer requires physical contact with the wall. He attains the ability to float, akin to the angels, utilizing the experience gained from the previous rooms. Embracing his newfound role as God, he deliberately selects humanity's significant achievements instead of randomly pressing buttons. Surrounded by feathers instead of walls, he concludes his actions and proceeds through a radiant portal that transports him to the final room, adorned with depictions of the continents. In this room awaits an enormous member button, which the man is on the verge of pressing. This phase is known as Future.